Isengard was like, bro, I'm working with the police, but hey, I bet £2 can convince you to loosen your mouth, right? Klein was like, £2? Who do you take me for? As he pocketed the money and explained what he overheard the madam say. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Art and Recap. I'm your artist Faye, and today we are reading chapter 271 till 275 of Lord of the Mysteries. In the previous chapter, Klein was contacted by a reporter. The dude asked him if he could work as his bodyguard while he visits a brothel where one of the dead girls worked at. Klein did a divination in the bathroom before he agreed to the task. Now we're at 19 Hope Street on Sherwood Borough. With Klein there, you can even say there's hope on the streets. Anyway, the Golden Rose is one of the legal brothels in Backland. The reporter said that it's one of the best ones in Sherwood and Backland Bridge region, and Klein deduced that there's better ones out there thanks to this information. I do wonder if Cuttlefish is actually gonna touch on the ballet dancers in the theater industry and how they were pretty much exploited by the rich and were kinda the prostitutes for the nobles. You know what I mean? If he's gonna touch on that. Since there's implied to be a best brothel in Backland, I can only assume that their clientele would be the nobility, and we all know how they love to save face, so the brothel needs to be on the down low. Hence why it's probably going to be, like the theater with ballet dancers as their prostitutes, which kind of matches with history. Yeah. The reporter Mike and Klein entered the brothel. The reporter told Klein to invite a lady to a dance if one of them catches his fancy, and to ask them for their price when they're dancing. Mike approached a young girl who was at most 15 or 16 years old, and all I can say is, call the police! Even Klein was taken aback as he followed Mike, but Mike explained that since the victim, Cyber, was only 16 years old, it's most likely that she's friends with those her age. Then he asked Klein if a lady caught his fancy, and Klein was like, bro, I'm on the clock right now, I'm just here because of you. And Mike told him that he's not used to being watched when he's interviewing someone, so Klein was like, well, okay, fine, I'll stand watch nearby. Klein pities the young girl that's dancing with Mike cause she's fallen on harsh times. After the dance, Mike returned and told Klein that it's too expensive, like he's talking loudly. Then he muttered in a low voice that the owner, Ma'am Lopez, forbids anyone from speaking about the incident or they'll be punished. That's what he got from the girl. Klein asked what he'll do now, and Mike said that he's gonna go straight to the head honcho and that Klein should protect him. Mike made a show of interest in talking with the madam and was then invited to chat with her. The madam asked who he's interested in, and Mike was like, you, that's who's I'm interested in. And the madam was like, yeah, no, dude, it's that time of the month for me, so I have to decline. Mike then tells her that he's actually a reporter and wants to talk about cyber, even handing her an ID to check. The madam was like, dude, I already told everything I know to the police, so go bother them instead. But we do find out that on the night Cyber died, she spent the night at someone else's house and died on the way back in the morning. She waved over two bouncers to escort the duo back to the hall. Klein told Mike that the madam was definitely lying and said that her eyes were darting around and didn't even dare look them directly in the eyes. Her body language was also very defensive. Mike told him that he's a great detective, but really, Klein could only tell that she's lying because he activated his spirit vision and could see her emotions. He basically bullshitted the reason right after. The two of them were about to leave the brothel when Mike saw the madam walk to the side door of the hall that also had two bouncers standing guard. He's like, dude, Klein, let's follow the lady and see what's got her so agitated. And Klein was like, good sir, I'm only here for your protection. What you're suggesting sounds hella illegal right now. So Mike was like, I'll pay you more, and guess what? Klein agreed. They approached the door, and one of the bouncers was like, sorry dudes, this is off limits. And Klein stepped forward and apologized. He bowed, and before he could completely stand up straight, he punched the bouncer on the abdomen and then chopped the bouncer at the back of the neck. And the other bouncer was caught by surprise and couldn't react on time as Klein did the same to him. He even vomited the bouncer, poor guy. Klein and Mike entered the paved corridor, then suddenly they heard Lopez's voice. She's telling someone to tell Kapim not to send anyone over in the next few days. The duo was super confused but couldn't really do much as they heard the footsteps of the lady headed in their direction. Klein was like, "It's time to bounce." Before he left, he made sure to break the lock of the side door so that they can have more time to run. Once they were at a safe distance, Mike thanked him and said that he needed to research who Kapim was, and then he handed over the money to Klein and was also complaining how he's hella expensive for a detective. Klein was like, "Dude, at least you can reimburse this, right?" Then he asked if he's not afraid that Lopez will find his newspaper firm and get the police to arrest him. But Mike was like, "Nah, dude, I used a fake ID." Klein was speechless, but the duo parted ways afterwards. While Klein was waiting for a public carriage, a rental carriage approached and stopped right in front of him. An old gentleman introduced himself to Klein as Detective Isengard Stanton and that he's assisting the police in the murder case. Then he asked if he can have a chat with Klein. Klein was like, "Huh, a detective? Well, he must be hella good and famous if he's working with the police." And considering the fact that the case most likely involved devil worshipping, the detective might even be a Beyonder himself. Klein thinks that he really had no reason not to join the carriage ride, except for, stranger danger. I'm like, "Klein, surely your parents taught you that. How do you know that the guy is really who he said he is? It's not like you can divine it right now, and even with spirit vision, if the guy is a Beyonder himself, he'd know how to regulate his emotions, yeah?" But yeah, okay, sure, let's just enter the totally not suspicious carriage. After all, you still have 8 lives left. Inside the carriage is a young brown-haired man and was introduced as Isengard's assistant. Also, isn't Isengard from Lord of the Rings? I'm pretty sure I've heard that name pop up when I was watching the movies before. Anyways, Isengard asked what type of information Klein got from the brothel. Klein told him, "Hold up, dude. I'm also a detective and I'm under an NDA from my client." Isengard was like, "Bro, I'm working with the police, but hey, I bet £2 can convince you to loosen your mouth, right?" Klein was like, £2? Who do you take me for?" As he pocketed the money and explained what he overheard the madam say. Upon the mention of Kapim, Isengard seemed like he finally understood something. Klein asked who Kapim was and was told that he's a magnate in Sherwood Borough, and with a name like Kapim, I can only assume that he's actually part of the Backland Mafia, cause Capo, Kapim, Capo. I do wonder if he's the boss though, cause Kapim isn't Capo just like some sort of lieutenant? Anyway, the dude is so sus, but he knows how to take care of evidence and has connections, so the police couldn't really arrest him. Isengard thanks Klein for his cooperation and asked for his name, which Klein gave us Sherlock Moriarty before getting off the carriage. Isengard turned to his assistant and was like, "That guy has no fashion sense, cause apparently Klein's gold-rimmed glasses clashes with his beard and it's not in line with the norm and that he might be trying to hide something. Or he truly has no sense in fashion, that could also be it." Meanwhile, Klein was thinking that Isengard was definitely not a normal person cause he was far too level-headed when he was looking at him through his spirit vision. Anyway, Klein arrived at Braveheart Bar and asked the barkeeper if Marek was around. The barkeeper said that he hasn't seen the dude since around yesterday. Klein thinks that Marek might also be in hiding and there must be a reason why Miss Bodyguard, a Sequence 5 Beyonder, accepted a mission to protect him for only £1,000. And it's not like £1,000 is something to sneeze at, but with her high sequence, she could have asked for more. So, he thinks that Marek and Miss Bodyguard also have something to hide like him. Marek could have been exposed as a Beyonder and is now getting targeted by the machinery hive mind. Klein went to his small one-bedroom apartment to divine that no one was following him before he went back to his more fancy apartment at Minsk Street. Minsk Street is so hard to pronounce for me. He read the newspaper and found the code that there will be another Beyonder gathering the next day, and Klein thought, perfect, I want to sell some formulas and buy some stuff too. That next evening, Klein went to the gathering in a specialized outfit and disguise, hoping that Eye of Wisdom and the apothecary won't recognize him. After all, they know him as a newbie beyonder. It'll be sus if he waltzed in as his usual self and started selling formulas. He used the clown's ability to change his facial expressions and his physical tics, even going so far as to change the way he walks. He was handed a hooded black robe by one of the Eye of Wisdom's assistants, which Klein dons on emotionlessly. Instead of choosing to sit in the corner like a wallflower, which he usually does, he sat on a high stool right in the center. The moment Eye of Wisdom announced the beginning of the gathering, Klein instantly said that he wants to sell potion formulas. One is the Sequence 9 Bard and the other is the Sequence 8 Light Supply formula. It was honestly the only ones that he could sell without attracting any active secret organization in Backland. He didn't want to mess around with the psychology alchemist, so he kept the spectator and telepathist potions to himself. And there's no way he's gonna share the recipe for any of the seer pathway. He also has information about the witch pathway, but he's not gonna share that particular pathway around because that'll just cause even more chaos in Backland. Chaos that he'll probably have to deal with in the future if we're being honest here. A random man bought the formulas from Klein, saying that he can give the sequence to his kid since it's stronger than his sequence, and I'm wondering who is this guy, why is he so rich, why is he giving out this information, like you are aware this is a secret organization, right? Why are you just spouting that about? And yeah, if he's gonna be important in the future is also what I'm wondering. Cause the man is definitely rich if he's buying both the formulas at the same time. That being said, what if more than one person actually want to buy the formula? Would Klein just get double the amount? Because again, you can just, share it as much as possible because it's knowledge, right? The Eye of Wisdom used a ring to check the potion's authenticity and gave the go-ahead. Afterwards, the apothecary said that he got the sedatives that he promised Klein, but since he's not there right now, he can't really sell it. Klein was relieved that he wasn't recognized by the apothecary, even though the apothecary is kind of cursing him out and probably said that he's dead somewhere, which is probably the reason why he didn't come. Then a lady said that she has 2 weapons with Beyonder effects to sell, and Klein thinks that he might be able to buy something for Derek from her. After all, he, as the world, agreed to an exchange with the sun. One weapon that she's selling is called Whip of Slowness, and is really effective the longer the battle drags on. Since he's buying it for Derek, Klein asks if the whip can affect spirit-type creatures like wraiths. The lady simply said no. The next weapon that she's selling is called the Axe of Hurricane, and it can raise the user's agility and has some debuff effects. Like, it's got a 15% chance to numb the enemy and even a 5% chance to produce a bolt of lightning. If it's used in a thunderstorm, the chance goes up to 50%, and considering how many times lightning strikes in the City of Silver, it's pretty much a guaranteed, right? Of course, the weapon's effects only last for a year, and the lady wants £520 for it or the Barbarian Potion formula. Klein was like, well, that's the most perfect weapon for the sun if I've ever seen one. It didn't even matter that it only lasts for a year, because by the time the year is up, he thinks that the sun would be a Sequence 6 Beyonder by then. Some guy bid £520 for the weapon before Klein could even open his mouth, so Klein said £530. A bidding war went on until Klein calmly offered £560. That got the man silent, and Klein was like, damn, thank fucking God it didn't go over 600 cause that was his highest budget. Klein received the axe and admired the craftsmanship, while also thinking about how broke he is now and how he got a check on the inventor Lepard regarding the bicycle. Then another man said that he wants to sell Sequence 9 Corpse Collector for £230. Klein was like, yo, this guy doesn't happen to be part of the Nighthawks, right? Cause that would suck big time for Klein. At the same time, he could also be part of the Numinous Episcopate. Before the gathering ended, Klein asked if anyone got the spinal fluid of a dark patterned Black Panther. No one answered, and Klein was like, I'll give you guys a payment no Beyonder would refuse, like the law of Beyonder characteristics. It's too bad that he swore to the goddess that he wouldn't spill about the acting method. He already died once, so he didn't want to risk her wrath, even if he does wonder if the oath he swore was still valid. After all, he died and resurrected. Still, no one answered, so he just shrugged his shoulder. The apothecary guy said that he's selling medicines for a few pounds or even a solly. The weapons dealer lady asked if the beast in the sewers has been eliminated, and the apothecary guy was like, you know what, lady? You asked the right person. I don't know either. He hasn't really gone down to the sewers after his anonymous report to the police. And Klein was thinking to himself, man, this guy definitely got punched in the face a lot as a kid. Anyway, once the gathering was done, Klein went home and he pretty much sacrificed the axe to himself and then sent it via spirit mail to Derek with a spiritual info about what's going on with the weapon, its effects and time limit. Derek was extremely happy with the weapon he got and prayed to Klein so he can pass on the message to the world that he will gather the potion ingredient that he needed as soon as possible. We changed POV over to Theodoresha, who was visiting a lively but stinky pub. She was covering her nose as she squeezed her way inside, even telling some people to move away, using her Beyonder powers as an arbiter. She met a young man in his 20s, drinking alcohol and laughing loudly with the patrons. The guy is called William, and she has some business to talk with him. William greets her like an old friend and asks to drink with her, but she declined cause she's here on a mission. William is actually an informant, and she gave him a mission to keep an eye out for Lanivus, even handing him the portrait Audrey had painted. At first, William was a bit hesitant, cause Lanivus looks like your basic bitch out there, and Shio was like, hey, he just needs to look out for anyone who even remotely looks like him. She said that if he finds the person in the portrait, she'd pitch in another £10 for him, and that was enough to convince William to accept the mission. Then we move on to Klein talking with the inventor Lepard, who built a crude prototype of the bike. Klein gave him feedback after the trial ride, and then he returned back to his apartment at Minsk Street. Before he could even take off his hat, he heard the voice of Audrey praying to him. He was about to answer when his doorbell rang and he was greeted by the maid of Mrs. Summer. She was sent over to invite him on a Sunday luncheon, and Klein was like, free food? Don't think I'll say no to that, and he agreed to attend on Sunday. Once the maid left, Klein answered Audrey's prayer and accepted the manuscript she made about the abject nobles. Klein flipped through the manuscript while in the Grey Fog world and found the part about the Pound family. Apparently, they got their Viscount title from the Battle of the Violated Oath, which was around the 5th or 4th epoch, if I remember correctly. Anyway, about 32 years ago though, two of their heirs died from serious illnesses, and the old Viscount pretty much adopted a child from a distant relative to become his heir. Once the old Viscount died, the child became wild thanks to the servants' instigations, and in 8 years he lost all his wealth and title and was just reduced to a baron, and then later on he got reduced again into a baronet. Klein thinks that the serious illness was sus as fuck, and that the Pound family must have discovered the underground structure in their basement and disturbed the evil spirit there. There was an address at the last paragraph, and Klein decided that he will pay the baronet a visit soon. So anyway, about the artwork, this is actually my character. Her name is Nomusa. She's one of Noah's friends. She's actually Noah's best friend in my webcomic. I don't think I've drawn her that often compared to Noah and Azrael because, again, Noah and Azrael are the main characters, so it's kind of normal for me to draw them both more often. But the funny thing is, Nomusa is actually my oldest OC out there. Like, okay, maybe she's the second oldest OC. Um, I do have three OCs that are super old in the webcomic that will appear much later in the story. One of them is Hasmin, and the other is Mitse. Hasmin is actually, I think she might be the actual oldest, the very first OC that I've ever created, and she still exists to this day, though she has a massive redesign and lore change. And that is the same for Nomusa actually. Nomusa, she changed a lot. She's changed several times actually. If you are part of my Patreon, you will see that I have like um a design of her where she has a ponytail and dreadlocks instead of, having it short like this and open. And the first design of her has her with more of a curly straight hair with no dreadlocks. I also really love her backstory. I'm so excited to tell it to you guys. But so anyway, as I was saying, she changed a couple times here and there. Her eye color changed often. First it was like greenish, then it was blue, then it turned into gold. But I was like, no, I don't like that anymore. Let's go back to blue. But then I was like, Azrael was supposed to have blue eyes at some point, and I was like, that's a little bit too similar in shade, especially, so maybe let's not do that and bring it back to gold. But then I was like, but the palette seems so what's it called? Like, it's only monotone, right? Her palette then became kind of monotone because I took out the cold part of her palette, which were her eyes. So I was like, okay, let's actually bring back her blue eyes and change Azrael's eyes instead. And Azrael's eyes became magenta at some point, like really bright magenta. And I was like, okay, this, I'm happy with this because I don't know if you guys saw this illustration of me drawing Azrael in his like more human form, with the black hair and magenta eyes. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I love it. But then at some point I was like, you know what? We should actually redesign Azrael to look more demonic, like make him look more fantastical instead of human-like. So I was like, okay, let's change him then. And I took out his eyes, and now he's like pupilless. So a lot of considerations to be done. This is why I don't really draw Nomusa often, because again, her design isn't really completely fixed in place at the moment because she hasn't appeared in the story yet. So I can still play around a lot with her design because again, it's not super fixed compared to Noah. He has some redesigns here and there. His eyes went from gold to green and back to gold and then back to green again, because I was like, wait a second, I kind of like him with the green eyes more instead of the gold. So yada yada yada, this and that, and yeah, that's pretty much it for my OCs. So what do you guys think of this episode? Before I go, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps my channel out a lot. My commissions are open and my Vision link is down in the description below. Check out my story Dreaming of Aurora if you have the time. And finally, thanks to my patrons Robek, Vonarek, and J. Voltrevelitska for the support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!